Every underworld needs a lock on the door. Hades has one, and it isn't made of stone or iron. It's alive, it has 3 heads, and it has never once let anything walk back out on its own. This is the true story of Cerberus, the hound who doesn't guard the dead so much as guarantee they stay that way, forever, without exception and without appeal. Cerberus was born from 2 of the most feared monsters in the entire Greek tradition. His father was Typhon, the storm giant who once challenged Zeus himself for control of the cosmos, a story this channel will tell properly in Typhon's own episode. His mother was Echidna, half woman and half serpent, often called the mother of monsters, described by Hesiod as living alone in a hidden cave far from both gods and mortals, ageless and undying, raising her monstrous children in secret before scattering them across the world to their separate fates. According to Hesiod's theogony, their children read like a roster of Greek myth's greatest threats: the Lernaean Hydra, the fire-breathing Chimera, the riddling Sphinx, and Orpheus, the 2-headed hound who would later guard Geryon's cattle far to the west. Of that entire monstrous litter, Cerberus is the only one given a single permanent, unglamorous job. Stand at the gate and do not move, generation after generation, with no expectation of ever being relieved. His siblings at least got to roam, terrorize, and eventually clash with a hero in open country. Cerberus never left his post long enough to be anywhere but exactly where he was supposed to be. Ancient sources disagree on the details. Some describe 50 heads, others a serpent for a tail with snakes writhing across his back and spine, but the 3-headed version became the standard image passed down through art and later retellings. Each head watches a different direction at once, so that nothing enters and nothing leaves unnoticed, day or night, awake or half asleep. Hesiod describes him as bronze-voiced, eating raw flesh, guarding the house of Hades with a hunger that never seems to dull no matter how long he's stood there. Even his own name carries some mystery. Some modern linguists trace Cerberus back to an older, possibly non-Greek root, meaning something close to spotted, a detail that would make him a literal spotted hound long before he became a symbol of anything larger. He isn't cruel so much as absolute, indifferent to pleading in a way that makes him scarier than any monster who might actually listen. Cerberus's job wasn't really to stop the living from entering the underworld. Plenty of myths get visitors in past him with barely a struggle. His real job was making sure nobody left again once they'd crossed that threshold. He'd let almost anyone through the gate without much resistance at all. Getting back out again was the actual test that mattered. That distinction changes how you should read every hero who ever beat Cerberus. None of them actually defeated a guard dog in open combat. They all just found some way to leave a house that was never architecturally built with an exit in mind, using music, food, or brute force to slip through a door that was only ever meant to open one direction. Psyche's myth offers the most practical solution of any of them. Sent by Aphrodite, whose own episode this channel has already told, to retrieve a box of beauty from the underworld, Psyche was warned in advance exactly how to get past the Hound. 2 barley cakes soaked in honeyed wine, one thrown to distract him on the way in, a second saved deliberately for the way back out again. No myth spells out the underworld's actual geography more plainly than this one small, practical detail. Bring 2 cakes, because you are absolutely going to need to get past him twice, and forgetting the second cake is treated as a fatal, foolish mistake in every retelling of her story. Before we get to the one hero who beat Cerberus with nothing but his bare hands, hit subscribe now so you don't miss it. The most famous confrontation is also the most violent one in the whole myth cycle. As the final and hardest of his 12 labors, Heracles was ordered to bring Cerberus up to the surface world alive, using no weapons whatsoever, just his bare hands and his lion skin cloak against those bronze-fanged, triple-jawed heads. Hades, according to most versions, agreed to allow the attempt on one strict condition: no weapons, no chains, force alone against force alone. Heracles wrestled the Hound into submission over what several ancient sources describe as an exhausting, grinding struggle, hauled him bodily up into daylight, and displayed him to King Eurystheus, who reportedly hid in a storage jar at the mere sight of the beast. Then, notably, Heracles returned him afterward exactly as promised. Cerberus went back to his post without complaint. The gate needed him more than the surface world ever genuinely could. When Orpheus descended to plead for Eurydice's return, he didn't fight Cerberus at all, didn't even try. He played. According to Virgil and Ovid, the music alone was enough. Cerberus's three heads went still, lulled into something between sleep and awe, ears lowering one by one as the melody worked its way through all three minds at once. And the grieving musician walked past the one guard no weapon could ever have gotten past. It's one of the only myths in the entire canon where Cerberus isn't overpowered, tricked with food, or drugged into submission. He's simply moved, the same as anyone else who ever heard that song and forgot, for a moment, what he was supposed to be doing. Virgil's Aeneid gives Cerberus one more famous scene, quieter than Heracles's, but no less consequential. Aeneas, guided by the Sibyl, tosses him a drugged honey cake laced specifically to induce deep sleep, and the three heads slump one after another in sequence as the hero slips past into the underworld proper. It's a smaller myth than Heracles's labor, but it reinforces exactly the same underlying pattern. Nobody who successfully passes Cerberus does it through brute domination twice in a row. Every solution that works is really a workaround, not a genuine victory over him. The dog is never actually beaten in any lasting sense. He's just, for one narrow moment, elsewhere in his attention. Read across every one of these myths together, Cerberus stops looking like a monster in the traditional villain sense and starts looking like something closer to a law of physics, the boundary itself, given teeth and a bronze voice. He doesn't hate the people he stops from leaving. He doesn't love the god he serves without question. He simply enforces an irreversible rule that nearly every culture eventually needs some version of. Death is a one-way door, and someone or something has to stand at it. Norse mythology gives the underworld goddess Hel her own guardian hound, Garmr, stationed at the entrance to her realm in almost exactly the same role. Ancient Egyptian belief placed its own set of fearsome gatekeepers along the path a soul had to take through the afterlife, each one demanding the right answer or the right offering before allowing passage. Cultures that never traded a single myth with each other still landed on the same idea independently. Whatever waits on the other side of death needs something standing at the door, because a threshold nobody actually guards isn't really a threshold at all. Homer never names Cerberus directly in either epic, but the Iliad references the Hound of Hades in passing, evidence the creature was already a familiar figure in Greek imagination, well before Hesiod wrote him down formally in the Theogony a generation or two later. Later, mythographers, especially Apollodorus in his Bibliotheca, are where most of the specific hero encounters, Heracles' labor, the exact wording of Hades' one condition, actually survive in full. Ancient vase painters returned to the Heracles scene constantly. Black figure and red figure pottery from across the Greek world shows the same basic composition again and again. Heracles straining against a three-headed snake-maned dog on a double leash, Eurystheus sometimes visible cowering nearby in his jar. It's one of the most reproduced single images in all of Greek monster iconography, evidence that this particular myth captured the ancient imagination the same way it still captures a modern one. Cerberus didn't stay contained to ancient Greece and Rome. When Dante wrote his own Underworld more than 1,000 years later, he put Cerberus to work again, this time guarding the gluttonous in the third circle of hell, drooling over the damned and tearing at them with all three sets of jaws. Virgil, Dante's own guide through the poem, quiets the beast the exact same way Aeneas once did, by throwing something into its mouths to distract it, a direct callback to the honey cake from 13 centuries earlier. The word Hellhound itself, still used today for any monstrous guard dog in fiction or folklore, traces a fairly straight line back to this one specific animal. Cerberus never got a redemption arc, never switched sides, never once questioned the gate he was born to guard for eternity. In a pantheon full of monsters who rebel, bargain, or fall in love with exactly the wrong mortal, Cerberus's loyalty to an unglamorous, thankless job is almost its own quiet kind of tragedy. The one figure in Greek myth who is truly, completely incorruptible, and gets remembered mostly as a set of jaws for clever heroes to sneak past. Next up in this series, the Minotaur, another child of monstrous myth trapped in a labyrinth of someone else's making. Subscribe so you don't miss it.